Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, October 11th Maplewood City Council meeting. You know, I always start off with news about what's happening in the city, and I have to say this last weekend, not only was it beautiful weather, but we had a lot of things going on in the city. I know I was over at the shredding event over at Aldridge Arena. That was pretty busy. We also had Ramsey County Hazardous Waste picking up a lot of people were dropping off hazardous waste over there. And I then went down to our South Fire Station, and we had an absolutely fabulous family event down there. I see that we have some of our fire personnel in the back. It was really, really a fun event. I know I saw Councilmember Cave there. Councilmember Juniman was there as well. Great family event. I actually tried out the fire hose, and I'm here to tell you that I am not cut out to be a firefighter. I did get the little, windows with flames to, go down with the fire hose, but boy, was that a struggle. I'm glad that those folks back there do it and I don't. There were a lot of games. There was lunch for, hot dogs, chips, lots of fun things. I know our public safety officers were there as well. And council members, what I really enjoyed was seeing all of that great equipment that we have approved up here at the council DS. We had the cherry pickers and the ambulances, and it was fun to see all of that. And boy, the kids really did enjoy that. I even went through the little house that the simulation on what to do in a fire, and it was so fun to see everyone. Our personnel being so passionate about fire safety and fire prevention. It was a great event. So I really, really appreciate all of the work that the firefighters did on that. Lots of fun. And I look forward to them doing something else, hopefully in the springtime when we have our new fire station open. We'll have another fun time then as well. So with that, tonight we have a Cub Scout pack. We're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance. And we have some very special Cub Scouts that I met with them last week on Zoom. We couldn't meet in person, and I invited them to come up. So, gentlemen, if you would like to come up, they are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Oscar Kleider, Lucas Shermer, Miles Fauski, David Enos, Wesley Loffrey. I hope I pronounced your names correctly. So if everyone would rise, please. They're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, guys. And Miles, I'd like to ask you, Miles's mother is serving in the Army National Guard. She is currently deployed. And since we are recording our city council meetings, Miles, would you like to send a special message to your mom overseas?
Yeah. Hi, Mom.
Anything else you want to say? She's going to be watching this.
I miss you and I wish you were here.
Thanks, Miles. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you so much, PAC 471. Yeah. Our public safety department, our police and fire, have a little swag bag for you, and your Cub Scout master has those. She will give you all of those. You certainly are welcome to stay for a little while, or you certainly can leave, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, City Clerk Sint, could you please do the roll call for us?
Councilmember Knudsen?
Here.
Councilmember Villavicencio?
Here.
Councilmember Cave?
Here.
Mayor Abrams?
Here.
And Councilmember Juniman isn't joining us tonight.
Okay, thank you. Council members, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion or additions? I would like to add something under council calendar update. The proposed changes by Ramsey County for the park ordinance that they're currently considering right now. Council members, anything else you'd like to add? Okay, hearing none, then all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to approval of the minutes. We have the September 27th, 2021 City Council Workshop Meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion approval?
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Villavicencio. The motion to approve the September 27th, 2021 City Council Workshop Meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have the September 27th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved?
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Knutson. The motion to approve the September 27th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to appointments and presentations. I'll turn this over to our city manager, City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the City Council. The council calendar is just a snapshot of what's coming up at our next meeting and things that we are working on behalf of the council. On our next meeting on October 25th, we will have the commissioner appointments that will be selected based on the interviews that you had this evening for the Heritage Preservation Commission, the Environmental Natural Resource Commission, and our Housing and Economic Development Commission. So next week, we will be making those appointments. And then we'll also be awarding the Charitable Gambling Awards, which you will be hearing about this evening, and we'll have till next Friday to award those as well. Things that we're working on are the parking space requirement review, and as you've been, we've been talking to you, this is part of that overall zoning changes that need to happen because of our comprehensive plan. So the parking is being wrapped up on that, and that'll be starting to come before you in the next month or so with regard to some of those zoning changes as well. We also are reviewing the garbage recycling carts and screening. You should have a report on that shortly. And then at the last meeting, you brought up kind of a review of whether we can go Zoom or live council meetings to Zoom or not Zoom, I think was how you put that, Mayor, for our council meetings and commission meetings. So we'll have, Mr. Beatty will work with me on that one. We'll get a report to you shortly. And then I think, Mayor, you had something you wanted to bring back up for this, for the calendar?
Right. I just want to make sure that we continue to include goats for next summer. I know that we did have a report about the possibility of bringing goats in to take care of some of our noxious weeds in buckthorn, but we haven't taken any action on it, and I want to make sure that we keep that out there in front of us. And then, next year when
we can do it.
The issue comes to us, and if we make a decision on it, and if we go with goats for the summer, then let's review that. How did that go? Was that a good idea or wasn't it a good idea? But we can keep it on here, recognizing that nothing is going to happen. I know staff was we were looking at getting a grant to pay for the goats, or at least help pay for it. So, but I'd like to keep it on the calendar so that we can kind of keep that fresh in our minds.
Happy to do that, and unless there's anything else, that's the end of my report.
Okay. Anything else anyone would like to add? Okay, the one thing I wanted to add was to kind of bring to everyone's attention. Some of you might have been hearing this if you're at home. Council members, you might have been hearing this from some of our residents as well. Ramsey County is currently considering expanding their park ordinance and expanding the time that the parks are open. So what they did was they had already an engagement process to review their park ordinance. They did some survey questions and asking about park access, including questions that would be, is it appealing or concerning if they were to expand the hours of the park being opened from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.? Now, since we have Battle Creek and we have Keller Park, those are both Ramsey County parks located in our city, it certainly is something that we want to pay attention to. And one of the options in their survey is providing 24/7 access to our parks. I mean, I have some immediate concerns about that, and I think a number of other people do too. Maplewood, just a little bit of history, because I asked Audra to put together some history for me about it, that, a number of years ago, Maplewood changed our park hours from being open. It used to say, I remember this, 1/2 hour before sunrise and 1/2 hour after sunset. And we changed that to 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. We did that for a variety of reasons, and it seems to be working out pretty good for us. But anyway, the county is looking for people to weigh in, so if you have an opinion on it, the next step in their process looks to be a Board of Commissioners workshop on November 2nd, followed by a 5-week comment period to gather additional resident feedback. The webpage says that they will communicate about the public comment period on social media, and I'm sure our communications director, Joe Sheeran, will be working with Audra so that we can get something on our website, and then people can just click on the links and share their opinions with your county commissioners on what you think about their proposed changes to hours in the park. This is one of those opportunities. Weigh in, make sure that, you express yourself. We've got an opportunity to do that. And I think that there are really some fundamentally good questions here. So please look forward to that in the month of November. There will be a public comment period. So with that, the very next thing on our agenda is our Heart Safe Community Recognition presentation. And Chief Mondor, I'm going to call you up for that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In 2015, the Maplewood Fire and Public Safety Department embarked on a journey to become a heart-safe community, and several steps were taken by staff to accomplish this goal. We did so right after the pandemic reared its head, so we were unable to celebrate appropriately in person. And so I don't want to steal the thunder of my guest tonight, so I've invited Renee Hamdorf from Allina Health Heart Safe Communities, and she has a brief presentation where she's going to talk about the history of the program, what went into Maplewood achieving this accomplishment, and then she'll present us with our plaque and recognition.
Renee, welcome to the council meeting.
Right. Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for welcoming me here today. Like Chief Mondor mentioned, Renee Hamdorf with Allina Heart Safe Communities. A little background kind of on the program. Heart Safe Communities is currently throughout the state of Minnesota, kind of housed between a few organizations. The Department of Health, American Heart Association are kind of our parent, but the program originated with Allina in 2012. No, I'm going to go back years before that, 2009. And the program has grown immensely. And so we have a large number of communities throughout the state that are designated. And we know that we have proven heart safe designation improves cardiac arrest survival. So I'm going to talk really quick. What is cardiac arrest? October not only is Fire Prevention Month, but it is also Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month. So a lot of people don't know just the impact that cardiac arrest has on America. 350,000 plus Americans every single year suffer from sudden cardiac arrest. Less than 10% survive. That's equivalent of 2 747 airplanes crashing every single day in America and 0 survivors. So it is one of the largest killers that we see out there. And it's really an unfortunate thing because there are a lot of things that we can do to reduce those numbers, and the things that go into heart safe designation are a big component of that. So when sudden cardiac arrest happens, our heart has its own electrical conduction system that kind of has a misfire. And when it happens, the heart is no longer pumping blood to the brain, to the heart muscle itself, to all the vital organs. The person becomes unresponsive, they are not breathing normal, and again, their heart's not pumping blood. And so very quickly, this can happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere, people of all ages. If there are any soccer fans out there, you may have seen kind of big international news this summer when on the field over in Europe, a 26-year-old collapsed during a soccer game, and he was saved because of early CPR and defibrillation. But a healthy athlete can go into cardiac arrest. It truly can happen to anybody. And so increasing that awareness is a huge component to survivability of cardiac arrest. Increasing awareness, getting people trained in CPR and using an AED and having AEDs readily available. For every minute that goes by without defibrillation, chances of survival drop by 10%. So kind of reiterates the importance of that early defibrillation. And early good CPR, and it doesn't have to be CPR that we all knew kind of years past. Hands only is what we're teaching the public now. You don't have to blow in somebody's mouth anymore, just pushing on their chest. In those first 3 to 5 minutes, we can double or triple their chances of survival. So those numbers are huge. So kind of a holistic approach when we look at what can we do to help increase those numbers. And the public is our first component of that, and that is awareness, that CPR and AED training. Next step is our first response, so law enforcement, fire. You guys kind of have a unique area where your fire is somewhat first response, but also EMS, kind of that dual response there. And so they hit kind of both of those targets there, and then long-term care. And so if we take that public component out, the chances of survival are pretty dismal. We're in that less than 10% category pretty typically. So that's where heart safe designation really comes in and is that important factor. So this is a study that was conducted out of our group looking at some of our response areas that had been heart safe designated numbers prior to these communities being designated and post. You can see CPR performed by either bystanders or first responders. So this is encompassing both. Prior to becoming heart safe designated, that number was 83%. Following designation, we saw that number go up to 95%. And use of an AED prior to ambulance arrival, pre-designation 63%, after designation 77%. So a pretty drastic increase on both components there. And then kind of to piggyback on top of that is the chances of somebody surviving to hospital discharge. The numbers are pretty startling there when you look at the difference between a cardiac arrest at home, where there is no AED use, is roughly 12% in this study, and when there is an AED used by bystanders, 34%. And so we're seeing, that's triple almost numbers. So if that's your loved one, I know what I want to have happen. So Maplewood, what your staff members, this is what you guys are here to be proud of, what your staff have done over a couple of years in order to become designated. So they trained 6.7% of your population in just a couple of years. That's a pretty big number of people that are now trained in CPR. And I wasn't at any of their classes at any of their classes, but I can speak personally when I teach classes. I know I tell people, go home and tell somebody what you learned today, because they can learn CPR just from you telling them. And so if I imagine each of those 2,600 people just mentioning it to one other person, the basics of how to do CPR, you've doubled that number. And they've set a pretty lofty goal long-term of getting another 10%, or getting to 10% here in the next, I think next year or two. Obviously, COVID's kind of changed those goals a little bit, with additional goals of 15% even further down the road. So those are big numbers to have people aware of what cardiac arrest is, performing CPR and using an AED. 123 AEDs have been found in your community and have been entered into the Pulse Point app. If anybody here does not have the Pulse Point app on your phone yet, I would encourage you to put it on. Not only would it help you if you come upon an emergency to help, hey, is there an AED close by me? You can get how-to on how to do CPR and how to use that AED. So it's a pretty impressive thing that Ramsey County has put an investment in. Our dispatch center here in Ramsey County has access to that, and so if somebody does call in a public place and we recognize that there's a cardiac arrest happening, they are able to send out an alert. If somebody has that app and they're nearby, they may get an alert saying, hey, CPR is needed, and if you're close enough to go and respond, they're able to respond and help provide CPR, as well as, hey, do we have an AED close by? So it could be your AED here that is called to help in a public place nearby, or another one out in your community, any one of those 123. So it's a pretty wonderful program. Lot of other things citywide that you guys have. We look at not just the cardiac arrest specific, but overall heart health. What are some things that you guys as a community are doing to improve overall heart health for your residents, visitors, and reducing those risk factors? And so you guys have done a pretty, I think, multi-year project to upgrade city streets, living streets, walking paths. You have a program that you work with the YMCA on a partnership to get affordable workout or programs for people to get into a health club. And I know there were more than that, but trying to kind of focus on a couple there. And then that early advanced life support, having that in-house. You guys are getting ALS there rapidly. You've got a couple ambulances as well as a fire engine that's going to be, on scene quickly in those cases. So those make a difference. And then down on the bottom, we talked about, I'm going to go back for just a second. Those numbers on cardiac arrest, how many people do we see performing CPR and bystander use of an AED? Our numbers here evaluated both first responders and bystanders, because this was looking back a few years, quite a few years ago. These numbers are kind of more current as a national average. 39.4% of overall cardiac arrests in the nation have bystander CPR performed on them. You guys locally, since you've been designated HeartSafe, have had 39 cardiac arrests in your community outside of a hospital, clinic, care facility. So those are in somebody's home, in the public, where there's no healthcare people that are formally there expected to provide care. So a bystander decided they were going to perform CPR 46.2% of the time during COVID. That's really impressive. We know as a the national average, that 39.4 is a number taken pre-COVID. We know that number has gone down due to COVID. Unfortunately, it's hard to get an exact number with COVID right now, but that 39.4 is pre-COVID. And you guys are at 46.2 during COVID. So that's impressive. That's really impressive to say that people are stepping up. And that's because of the training that your staff are providing and that awareness that they're getting out there. Same thing with that AED use. 6 out of those 39 times, somebody used an AED prior to your staff EMS arrival. The national average, again, pre-COVID, 5.7%. You guys are at 16.7%. That's incredible. Those numbers are great. We know you guys have some saves out of those numbers. Unfortunately, the system for us to have access to try to see it precisely how many is very difficult to access. We can't just call up the hospital and say, hey, how's that guy doing? Because of HIPAA, we're not allowed to get some of that information all the time. There is a database that tracks it, but right now, with all things COVID, it's a little bit difficult to get those numbers. But I do know that you guys have some saves out there, and you're doing well. So congratulations. Those are pretty amazing things. So I
Can
love
we
this.
go back to that previous slide, because just in terms of the number of AEDs and the fact that everyone is trained, we have them in our vehicles too. That's
Yes.
really important.
Yes.
Because we didn't have that before.
Yes, correct. You guys now have AEDs in all police vehicles, all fire trucks, every emergency vehicle in your community. And prior to your start of the efforts for heart safe designation, that was not the case. And so again, that early response, getting that AED, just having them out on the street, driving around in your community, increases the chances of getting that on somebody in less than 4 to 5 minutes. That's the ultimate goal. If we can get hands on a chest and an AED on somebody in less than 6 minutes, that's where we really have a good chance at saving them. And the faster, the better. The higher outcomes we have in both getting their heart beating again, as well as discharge from the hospital with some normal brain function.
Thanks.
And then this one's always I don't know if there's any law enforcement in the room, but that's always my favorite way to end. So any questions you guys have?
Any questions, council members?
No questions.
So congratulations, way to go.
Thank you.
It is a great thing. A lot of effort has been put into this designation by your staff. They've really done a good job. And
This is all about our staff. And, council members, maybe a little bit of history on this as well, that if I had to remember the year when we started this. Chief Mondor talked to me about Heart Safe Cities, mentioned something to me, and I asked him more about it. And I was a really new council member in 2015, and I brought it to my fellow council members because of my family's experience. My father had just about every heart problem there is, and he was revived by AEDs, and he was on a first-name basis with the fire department where he lived. So it really became something that was so important to me that we bring this to our city. Mm-hmm. And I asked Chief Mondor about it. Is this something we could do? The council agreed with me that we should go forward with this, and it was all staff. The only thing I can claim is that I actually did a video. Chief Mondor taught me staying alive. I think I could still do it today. But how important that was. And so, this is a really great example, council members, of initiatives and things that we can do to help our community. This is a huge designation, and our staff did just a fabulous job. This took a lot of work, a lot of changes, and we are prepared in how wonderful this is for our community. So, Chief Mondor, and all of you staff back there, please thank everybody who helped in this, because this is a really important thing. We can save lives. This is really meaningful. So, Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out for Allina Health. This works really well when everything is connected. Mm-hmm. And Allina works really hard to make everything connected. I wear an EKG from like a PVC, as anyhow. So last year I was out skiing in Colorado, and I got a call from Allina United Hospital saying, Mr. Knutson, we got to tell you, your heart rate is higher than we've ever seen it.
oh no!
Well, I ran into a neighbor that skied harder than me, and I had to keep up with him. That's how connected Allina Health is, and it's
That's
appreciated, believe me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, I appreciate the kind words, and I would just echo that I wrote the report for this. The staff, the police officers, the firefighters, the paramedics, working together with other department heads about some of the other initiatives to pull this all together, that's who got this done. So I appreciate you taking the time to acknowledge them.
Took a lot of time, but it's so worth it. So,
You guys will have some street signs now that you can hang proudly to let
let's
your,
do a photo, okay?
Why don't we get the guys in the back also?
let
Yeah.
your residents and visitors know.
Yeah,
That's very cool. I like the signs.
this is a big deal.
Oh, you want us down there with them? Thanks, Jake.
You're ready. You guys got to bunch in a little bit. Hopefully you took showers. All right, let's get some fire. Charles. So he's all right. Nick, I'm going to have you come in a little bit. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Not so wide. There you go. All right, good stuff. Thanks.
Way to go.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We are a heart-safe city. Okay. Yes, Commissioner appointments. This is yours, Ms. Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. On September 27th, the City Council interviewed 5 candidates for commission openings. There were 2 openings on the Community Design Review Board and 3 applicants were interviewed. There are also 2 openings on the Park and Recreation Commission and 2 applicants were interviewed. And in your staff report on the last page were the score sheets, so you can see how that played out. The motion tonight for you is to approve the attached resolution to appoint the candidates to the commissions as indicated here. Tom Osman and Amanda Reinert to terms expiring April 30th of 2023 for Tom Osman, and for Amanda, a term expiring April 30th of 2022. And then on the Park and Recreation, easy for me to say, there were 2 openings. Monica Barton and Mark Harris are appointed, and they both have terms that expire on April 30th, 2024. So with that, Mayor, we need a motion to approve that resolution.
Council members, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the attached resolution to appoint the candidates. Motion to approve the attached resolution to appoint the candidates to the commissions as indicated below.
Second.
Moved by Knutson, seconded by Cave. The motion to approve the attached resolution to appoint the candidates to the commissions as indicated below. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda is we have 12 items on the consent agenda. Let's start with a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 12.
Second.
Moved by Knutson, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? I had a call from Councilmember Councilmember Juniman today. She was not able to make the meeting tonight, and she asked if I would step in and highlight G8 and 9. These are our 2 liquor licenses, and for those of you who have been with us in the past, Councilmember Juniman has a some brief comments for our liquor store license applicants, and I told her that I would step in and make those comments on her behalf. because she can't be here tonight. So, but first, City Clerk Sint, would you, let's start with 8, and then we'll do 9, Best Indian Food, and then the Millions Crab. Do you want to do that, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight for your consideration, we have an on-sale wine license for Indian Masala at 27 Century Avenue North. The current owner has been operating Indian Masala since February of 2019 and now wishes to expand to serve wine and strong beer as the previous owner did. They have applied for a 3-2 on sale, which does not require council approval, but will allow them, along with the wine license, to serve wine and strong beer at Indian Masala. So once council, if council gives approval, we will let the state know, because this is also a state-issued license. So we will let them know. They will do their inspection, and then they'll let us know if they have cleared, and then we will issue the city license for the wine license. For purposes of background investigations, it was conducted on the owner, manager, Harpreet Virk. Nothing was identified that would prohibit the issuance of the license, and Lieutenant Steiner has met with Ms. Virk on the general expectations of the service of alcohol. And so with that, we are looking for approval of the issuance of the on-sale wine license for Indian Masala, and the owner, Ms. Virk, is here for comments or questions.
Okay. Ms. Burke, would you please join us up at the dais, please? Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Councilmember Juniman has wanted me to relay to you how important it is that anyone serving alcohol in our city does not serve juveniles, any underage people. And she wanted me to express how important that is, and that she also wanted me to express that she's supportive of businesses and liquor licenses, but she is not supportive of anyone who carelessly serves underage drinkers. And she also wanted me to say that she hopes that you will never come back to the council because you have served an underage minor. Alcohol. Council members, you've heard this before. Did I miss anything?
No.
No?
Okay.
Did good.
How did I do? Okay. It's really important.
Yes, I just want to let you know I'm a mother and I have a teenager at home too, so I'm very much aware about it. So yeah, it's my social and moral responsibility. Yes, and then I'm a woman owner as well, so I have more, I have kids at home, so yeah, I'm much more aware and yeah.
Thank you very much. It's important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You can have a seat.
Thanks.
Nikki had it.
Councilmember Villavicencio, did you want this one or both in general?
No, I had a point of clarification on G2.
Okay. We'll come back to that. City Clerk Sint, do you want to do number 9, G9?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So also tonight, for your consideration, is an on-sale intoxicating liquor and Sunday sales license. We received the applications from MC Maplewood LLC, which is operating as Millions Crab at 1745 Beam Avenue, and that was the former Jake's location. Millions Crab has been open and operating since August and now wishes to expand to serve intoxicating liquor, and city approval is required for this issuance. Background investigation was conducted on the owner-manager, Mr. Yang, and nothing was identified that would prohibit the issuance of this license. Lieutenant Steiner has also met with Mr. Yang on the general expectations of alcohol service. And so with that, we're looking for a motion to approve the issuance of the on-sale intoxicating liquor and Sunday sale license for Millions Crab. And Mr. Yang is here for comments or questions.
Mr. Yang, would you like to join us up at the dais, please?
He would also like her to join, as he does not speak
Welcome
well.
to the council meeting.
I'm sorry, I don't speak English. My translator.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Very good, thanks. Our council member who is not with us tonight generally comments to anyone seeking a liquor license how important it is to not serve minors, no underage alcohol in our city. And she wants to, I'm relaying the information from her, but She wants certainly to welcome you and supports your business, but she wants to make sure you never come back here because we take underage service of alcohol very seriously as a council. And we fine people for it, and it gets to be, we don't want to do that. We want you to succeed in your business, but no underage alcohol.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, we understand.
Okay?
Yep. All right. Thank you so much. Thank
Council members, did I get it all?
You did.
Okay. It's a little uncomfortable. I mean, Kathleen, Councilmember Juniman does that so much better than I do. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that covers 8 and 9, and I've done my duty there. Councilmember Villavicencio wanted to highlight number 2, which would be the chief concerning the school resource officer. Did you have some specific questions?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to, I was looking at the agreement, and under scheduling, it says the SRO will be on duty during regular school hours in the school district all days while school is in session. And I guess my point of clarification would be, does that, just asking if that includes before and after school, because I've gotten a number of emails or messages around parents being concerned with safety going in and out of schools, as there's a lot
Any
of traffic.
school in particular?
Weaver, because my daughter goes there, and so obviously a lot of the parents know that I'm around, and so I've heard comments from that school particularly.
Okay. Public Safety Director Beardeman.
Mayor, Council, it's a great question. The SRO is not bound to certain hours, so if school lets out, for example, at 3:30, it's not like they have to be done at that time. If there's a specific threat, or if the school is asking the school resource officer to stay around after hours on any given time, they're certainly flexible in doing that. Also for special events, such as dances or things of that nature, overtime can be covered up to 30 hours, I believe. So their hours are definitely not set. They can kind of adjust as they see fit, and if there's a particular threat or any issues that they have with the school, they can definitely adjust their hours through their supervisor as they see fit.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, council members, so we have a motion before us for G1 through 12. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. We have we have unfinished business tonight. The lot width variance resolution. Mr. Thompson, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If I can get the presentation pulled up. This item is coming back to the Council. We've received an application from the property owners of 2010 Edgerton Street North for a lot width variances associated with a proposed subdivision and ultimately the construction of a new house on these properties. Just as a quick overview, the property is located on the east side of Edgerton Street. It's located between County Road B and Roselawn. It is currently a single parcel of land, and there's one single-family home built on the front part of the lot. It's about 2.8 acres in size, so it is a large lot, but a significant portion, about a third of the back of the lot, is encumbered by Oreline Lake, which is public water designated by the DNR, so it's subject to the city's shoreland overlay district. It's also classified as a wetland in our wetland inventory, and so is also part of, is required to meet some of our wetland requirements. So those are kind of two separate but overlapping restrictions that apply in terms of natural resource management. The property is guided in our 2040 comp plan for low-density residential, and then it's currently zoned R1, which is a residential single-family dwelling district, where the primary permitted use in that district is single-family homes. So in that district, we don't allow for twin homes or duplexes or anything more than a single-family home. And then just a quick review of the surrounding land uses. Directly to the west are the Edgerton Manor apartments. Those are guided high density. And then to the south is Edgerton Park and Edgerton School, which are guided institutional. But everything that surrounds the property and to the east of Edgerton is an established single-family residential neighborhood that shares that same land use designation and the same R1 zoning as the subject property. As with all zoning districts in Maplewood, our ordinance does establish minimum requirements for every new lot that is created in the city. And so within the R1 zoning district, It requires 10,000 square feet, a minimum lot area or lot size. It also requires a minimum of 60 feet of lot width, and that's measured at the street or at the front property line, in this case along Edgerton. As I mentioned, there's overlapping requirements because of the natural resources on the site, and our Shoreland Overlay District also requires a greater lot width of 75 feet for lots that are located within the Shoreland District, which is applicable in this case. So the application before you is for variances from those two requirements, both the 60-foot lot width requirement in the R1 district and also the 75-foot lot width requirement established in the Shoreland Overlay District. So this is the proposed lot division that would be done should the council approve the requested variances. Again, the details of the subdivision really haven't changed from the last time you saw this. The existing house would remain on the front part of the lot, and the dashed line represents where the proposed lot division would then occur, creating a kind of a new flag lot configuration where the new house would be constructed in the rear of the lot, back closer to Oreline Lake. The proposal requires the variance because that neck portion of the lot is only 34 feet in width, so that's what does not meet either of the Shoreland or the R1 district requirements. So the council reviewed this on August 9th. At that meeting, you did table the application. I think we understood there was some concern about the proposed house location and wanting to ensure that, though that's kind of step 3 in the process, right now we're reviewing the lot variance, then would come the subdivision, but ultimately that would result in the construction of the house. Our takeaway was the council wanted more information about what, could that house be built back there and still comply with our natural resource requirements to ensure that there's not subsequent requests for variances or relief from any of our ordinances. And so we have worked with the applicant, and they have submitted the additional information that was included in your packet addressing some of those natural resource items. So this is the revised plan that was submitted. It's more detailed in its kind of grading and house placement, so they've actually included some of the preliminary grading information. And it does show that the proposed house would continue to meet the 75-foot setback from Oreline Lake, so it does meet the shoreline setback requirement. And the proposed grading is all outside of the required wetland buffer. So in this preliminary plan, there would be no impact into the wetland buffer and no then future variance that would be needed under this plan from the city's wetland ordinances. But with that being said, the lot configuration and the proposed lot line has not changed, and so the basics of the request before you are the same, and that is what's still required of the lot variances from both R1 and the Shoreland District. But we did want to bring that additional information for the council as part of your review. The state statute and our ordinance is consistent with this. There are more, but the 3 core findings that the city has to make in order to grant a variance is, 1, that the proposal is reasonable, or that they're proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner. The second is that there are circumstances unique to the property that are not caused by the landowner. And third, that the variance, if granted, would not alter the essential character of the locality. Because the proposal has not changed any of the basics of what the variance is, staff continues to believe that the variance standards have not been met. We don't think that the existing circumstances are unique to the property, and that the 34-foot lot would be out of character. We did look at all of the lots along Edgerton Street on the east side there, and there's a couple lots that have 55 feet in width. We actually have a different zoning, R2, and those are located these narrower lots kind of on the peninsula there. Those are about 55 feet in width. But looking up and down Edgerton to the east, all of the other lots are conforming to that 60-foot requirement, and none of the lots are at 34 feet. And then lastly, just given the house location and the flag lot configuration, that's not something that we saw in the immediate areas. We define kind of the local neighborhood character of this area. So based on those 2 findings, staff continues to recommend denial of the variances as requested by the applicant. We did not take it back to the Planning Commission, again, because the nature of the request has not changed. And so, as I told you at the last meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed this, and they ultimately thought that there was something unique but just about the size of the lot, and they weren't necessarily as concerned about the placement of the new house on the lot. So they did essentially the motion to recommend approval, to recommend denial had failed, which was their intent was that the variance should be approved. So we have included in your packet, again, both resolutions or two separate resolutions, one which would deny the variances, which would be consistent with the staff recommendation, and the second one which would approve the variances, and that would be consistent with the Planning Commission recommendation. I do see the applicants here this evening as well. And the last note I would make is that right before the meeting, we did receive an additional correspondence from a neighbor. And I provided that, made copies for the council, and you have that in front of you just to make that clear for the record that that's been presented to the council. So with that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And Ms. Barnett, or Barrett, excuse me, no, Barnett, we did receive the letter and had an opportunity to review it. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, and thank you for everyone's patience in going back and getting additional information. I think that it certainly was helpful, but it still doesn't, in my estimation, this proposal, I could understand why the homeowners would want to do this, but the proposal doesn't meet the variance standards. I agree with staff. I don't believe that it is reasonable. I think that there are other options that the homeowners have. I believe that this will significantly change the character of the locality. And, in looking at our staff report and reading the impact on the other neighbors, I can see that this is now a very divisive kind of a thing in the neighborhood, and that's unfortunate. But I think that it really, stands to maybe to only benefit the homeowners. I don't see that there is any benefit to the neighbors, and I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the kind of precedent that this would be setting. I understand that, okay, it could be done ecologically and the wetlands would be protected, but that's not the only thing that we, as I see, as council members, really need to focus in on. And I think we need to look at a bigger picture and the impact on the neighborhood and the neighbors. And so from my perspective, I'm not in support of this. I just don't think that the proposal meets the variance standards, and we have variance standards for a reason. So I see some other lights on. Council Member Knutson, I believe you were next, and then Council Member Cave.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question, Jeff. So looking at the two variance options, but if they were to demolish their existing home and forget about driveway and all that other stuff and built the home the way they choose, would that comply?
Mayor and Council, yes, it could. So where they don't do the lot division, but
right.
the new house is constructed where it is and the existing house is torn down. I'm understanding that correct? Yes. Generally, we require the house to be set back similarly to adjacent properties, but there is some flexibility in the code for a new house to be set back further should it be consistent with particularly that house to the south. So yes, that house could be built there to comply with the ordinance.
When I look at this, when I look at this, I looked at the responses and all that, and and as long as you're just saying that essentially they could build near the wetlands and do it appropriately if they follow all the guidelines. So all the comments about, I wish they would leave it alone, that's interesting. But the reality is they could do that on their property effectively. The real problem here is the precedent set by these variances. I just can't support them. I think there are other options for these homeowners, and they haven't been pursued. So I would agree, I do not support this.
Councilmember Cave.
And I'd have to agree with Bill and Mary Lee on the fact that it's the precedent setting that it's bothering me. There's a unique neighborhood here with the lakes and all the wildlife and everything. And as soon as you go in and start making variance changes, you can start doing it all around the lake. And then where does it stop? And so that's what puzzles me with this is the variances. And that's why I'm not going to support this. Is the two variance changes that have to be made.
No more lights on? Council members, it looks like we need a motion. The first one is the staff recommendation motion, and in fact, I will make that motion. The motion to approve a resolution denying a variance request to create a lot 34 feet in width for the property located at 2010 Edgerton Street North.
Second.
Moved by Abrams, seconded by Knutson. The motion to approve a resolution denying a variance request to create a lot 34 feet in width for the property located at 2010 Edgerton Street North. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, then let's move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes and the variance is denied. Okay, moving on to new business. We have the American Cooperative on Lake Phelan. And Mr. Thompson, this one is yours as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have a development application that has been submitted by the applicant, Gramercy Development, for a development on a vacant parcel of land on East Shore Drive. So the address is 1875 East Shore Drive. It's a vacant site. It was actually originally part of the same property where the shores of Lake Phelan is located. And when that development was completed, there was actually a subdivision to subdivide the southern part of the lot and plat it as an outlot for future development. So it's a vacant site today. It's just over 2 acres in size. And as I mentioned, it's platted as an outlot. It is now not in the same ownership as the shores of Lake Phelan. Brief review of the property itself. It's guided in our comp plan for high-density residential, which allows up to 25 units per acre. It's zoned R3, which is a zoning that allows for multiple dwelling development, consistent with that land use designation. To the west, we have the Parkview Court Apartments, which are guided high density. As I mentioned, the shores of Lake Phelan is directly to the north, which is also high density. Lake Phelan Regional Park and Lake Phelan itself is to the south of the property, and then to the east is the single-family homes that are guided in our comp plan for low-density residential. So the developer is proposing to construct a 60-unit senior co-op building, and certainly if you have questions about the co-op model and how that works, I know the developer has done this type of project and many other locations that can speak to the more details, but it is an ownership model for senior housing without services. So that's the proposed use. And to move forward with the project, they need a conditional use permit for a PUD within the Shoreland District, which I'll go through a little bit. They need to replat the property into a developable property. So an outlot is not a property that can be itself built on, so it just needs to be re-subdivided or replatted. And then lastly, a design review for the construction of the new building and site improvements. On your right is the proposed site plan. The building it's an L-shaped building, kind of oriented east along the east side of the lot along East Shore Drive, and then along the north side of the property against the shores. There would be a single access drive kind of on the south side of the property, which would provide access to the parking area that's on the west side. That's kind of where the main entrance to the building would be. And then also along the south corner of the building is where the entrance would be to the underground parking garage. So just the single access. In total, there would be 130 parking stalls on the site, 95 in the underground parking garage, and 35 within the surface lots, which meets and exceeds our ordinance requirement for parking for multiple dwelling units. The building would be 4 stories in height. It would have a flat roof with the single level of underground parking. And the primary exterior building materials include cement fiberboard in a various types of patterns, lap, shake, and panels. There is quite a bit of cultured stone, some architectural CMU along the base, and of course the glazing for the window elements. And then in terms of the size of the units, all the unit sizes well exceed our minimum unit sizes for multiple family units. They are proposing to take advantage of some of our density credit allowances. And so in our ordinance, we allow some density flexibility or greater density for development that's greater than 3 stories in height. And in this case, for buildings that provide underground parking. So those are incentives to those items to then allow for a slight increase in the number of dwelling units. So with that density bonus, they are within the density allowed, or actually below the density that's allowed within our 2040 comprehensive plan. And then the planned unit development, it's fairly unique because it's really a planned unit development because of its proximity to Lake Phalen. And as you know, the PUD ordinance is a flexible tool that the city has that allows some flexibility along the kind of the strict provisions of the development standards in exchange for some kind of benefits to the site and benefits to the city, or a greater public good. Some of the flexibility is really warranted because the configuration of the lot is fairly challenging because it's essentially a pie shape and comes to a single point. So there are a couple pinch points, particularly for like the decks and the overhang and then the patio on the east side that are slightly closer to the property line than what our ordinance would allow. In reviewing it, we're okay with that. The stuff on the west side is the same as the apartment to the apartment that's on that side. So there are non-conforming setbacks along that apartment building, plus the areas where those encroachments are located either adjacent to the garage structure or to the north of the site where there's a wetland that's not really developable on that parcel. And then on the east side, there's a very large boulevard for East Shore Drive. So the building is actually a lot further from East Shore Drive than the setbacks would tell you. And then in exchange for that, in exchange for some of that flexibility, they are able to do some additional stormwater management to kind of go above and beyond our minimum requirements to treat the stormwater on the site. Given that proximity to Lake Phalen, we thought that was important. In terms of our natural resources management ordinances, not on the property, but directly adjacent, there, as I mentioned, there's a wetland, and so the buffer requirement extends onto this property. But the building, the site improvements and all of the associated grading do comply with the 75-foot wetland buffer from that wetland. And then they would be removing about 75 trees on the site, but would be planting 145 new trees. And with some slight upsizing in those trees, or adding a couple more, they can get to a point where they comply with our tree mitigation requirements, or in lieu of that, would be able to pay into our tree replacement fund at their option. And then the site is well landscaped throughout with other shrubs and perennial plantings about. We've included, and this was discussed quite a bit at the CDRB, but there's a condition included in there about the final landscape plan providing some additional screening for headlights along the west property line from that adjacent apartment building. I know there were some comments included in a letter in your packet that was discussed at the CDRB, and so that is included as an additional condition. The plat's pretty simple. It's just there's no change to the lot configuration. It's just changing it from an outlot to a buildable lot. And as I mentioned, it does comply with all of our ordinance requirements. And then the last piece is any planned unit development does require also a comprehensive sign plan review, which the CDRB looked at. They're really only proposing one modest sign, a monument sign along East Shore Drive. The design of it is consistent with the building itself, and as long as it complies with the 10-foot setback, the CDRB did recommend approval of that proposed sign. So we sent as we do with all developments, sent the comments off to the neighborhood. I do know there was one included from the apartment building with some questions, and that the developer has had individual conversations with the attorney representing that property owner, who was also at the Planning Commission meeting to work through those issues. So with that, the Planning Commission held the public hearing. They recommended approval of the Shoreland PUD and the plat. And as I mentioned, the Community Design Review Board recommended approval of the design review and the sign plan. So I know the applicant is here this evening with their design team if there are questions from the council, and I'm also able to answer any questions of staff.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Council members, are there any preliminary questions before I bring up the owner of the property and no questions? Okay, would you like to join us, please? Welcome to our council meeting.
Madam Mayor.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Mick Conlon. I'm the president of Gramercy Development Companies. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to bring our project to Maplewood. We're very, very excited. We recently broke ground on our project in Anoka. That's an 87-unit senior cooperative And so you can kind of see the phases of it here. We're really excited to get started and to begin marketing and pre-selling our project. If I may, I'd like to tell everybody at home, as well as the council members, a little bit about our company. So Gramercy is a family company. It was founded by my father in the 1990s. He built 13 senior co-ops across the Twin Cities and across the state. And along with my sister, Kathleen Conlon Joyce, and had a great string of success. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2004, and the company was sold. And Kathleen went on to work on other senior housing across the Twin Cities, and I was in the service and went to law school. And so during my day job, I'm an attorney. Unfortunately, I'm trying to work myself out of a job here. So. In 2018, we decided to restart our family brand. So it's really important to us. It's something that we put a lot of heart and soul into. And our first project under the restarted brand of the American Cooperative in Anoka, and now here in Maplewood, it's really, really exciting for our whole entire family. So my 3-year-old specifically is looking forward to getting and moving some dirt around. It's all he talks about, and it's actually all he thinks I do all day too. So I feel pretty neat. So this will be a 60-unit, 4-story building with a flat roof. Some of the amenities that were kind of discussed at the Planning Commission, we will have a large club room for all of our members to use as kind of the heart and soul of the cooperative, where all of the members come together each month to anything from just different clubs, travel clubs they might be interested in, or playing games with their fellow members and owners, to committees, marketing committees, gardening clubs, and actually a board. So there's a board that's elected within the cooperative that, with the assistance of our management company that we'll bring in, actually runs the building on the behalf of their fellow members. So there's no third-party developer that's involved after the building is built. It's really turned over to the members, and they democratically run that building, which is a pretty cool thing to have. Ownership for seniors in the city of Maplewood is actually a first for your city, bringing the cooperative model to the city. So we're really excited to do that. We mentioned the underground parking. That's something we learned in Anoka as folks transition from single-family living to living in a multi-dwelling. Sometimes scaling down the parking can cause a lot of anxiety. So we wanted to provide at least 1.5 per home plan underground parking. Experience tells us that probably won't be needed so much into the future, but having that initially there for the members to use is important. We could not be more excited about this location, using the public amenities that the city has invested in, and as well as the county and the city of St. Paul with the regional parks in this area. It's going to be fantastic. One of the biggest questions that we get is walking trails. Where are the walking trails at our other project? Here, you can't, you stumble outside and the walking trails begin and they don't end. So we're really, really excited about that. I'll just mention the cooperative model because we get a lot of questions about this. What folks are actually purchasing is a share in a not-for-profit company that we begin for them and turn over to them once they become owners. There's one share, one vote. So no matter the size of your home plan, you have an equal vote with your fellow members. The building is run at cost, so at the end of the year, if there's excess, it gets refunded back to the members. So it's a really, really interesting model. And I mentioned it's the first co-op in the city of Maplewood, and kind of an interesting piece here. It's a limited equity model. So because our project is financed and insured by the federal government, HUD actually insures our loan. There's a requirement there that this is the shares appreciate at a fixed amount per year. And so over time, that means it's not subject to market volatility. It becomes a very predictable investment for seniors who might not be interested in playing the real estate market anymore. And so as they go to sell into the future, it becomes affordable, remains affordable for, relatively speaking, for other seniors in your community. So we think it's a fantastic model. I could talk about cooperatives all day long. It's like my favorite thing to do. But with that, I'll stop here and see if there's any questions.
I have to say it's a great location. It's an interesting shaped piece of property, but you've done a really creative job in terms of what you're proposing there. Councilmember Cave, you were first.
Yes, just to remark on co-ops for people that are listening, can you explain a little more? Does a senior come in and buy a unit?
Great.
Or do they rent it and then sell it? Or
Great
just
question.
rent?
Absolutely. So there's an initial payment, your shared down payment, that's made when you sign a subscription. Much like a purchase agreement in a cooperative model, it's called a subscription. That'll occur for most of our members before the building is built. Once we get to 60% and 60% of the folks have agreed to move forward with us, then we will break ground. So the risk that they might be purchasing something that might not get built is really removed, or that the building might be empty once we build it. We're taking a lot of the risk off the table for that. So when they go to sell, they get their share price back, plus the compounded appreciation that occurs, plus any upgrades that they might make to their home plan. So it's a great way to transition the equity that you might have in your single-family home over a period of maybe 30 years. Purchase a share, and then when you go to sell, you actually get that amount back. So it's a very safe, secure, stable program that the federal government's really come up with to offer an alternative for seniors who are interested in ownership.
And then one more question. Are you going to offer 1, 2, and 3 bedroom?
Yes, so our bedroom sizes, we kind of learned in our first project. Usually folks, because they're downsizing, there's that initial anxiety again. And so we want to remove that. This downsizing question comes up a lot. Some people really dread it. Other folks are really looking forward to getting rid of their partner's collections of years of stuff. So what we've learned is the kind of sweet spot for square footage is about 1,200 square feet up to 1,800 square feet. So the vast majority of the building will be in that 1,200 square foot range, 2-bedroom, going up to a 2-bedroom with a den, really could be a 3rd-bedroom sized home plan. Just to hit on the economics again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we have the share price, and then there's also a monthly fee that's paid when folks move in. And that monthly fee covers their share of the master mortgage. The cooperative actually has a mortgage. They don't go out and get an individual mortgage. The cooperative has a master mortgage that's insured by HUD. There's also, all of your utilities are included in that except for electric. So it's a very easy way to balance, plan ahead budget-wise, is your monthly fee includes that amount. It includes the insurance policy for the building, general liability, the entire management team that's there. There'll be 3 staff members that are there generally full-time, and reserves. So unlike a condo model where if there's an issue, they pay for it with assessments in the future, here the federal government, again, insuring this building, insuring the mortgage, requires that we have certain reserve levels built in so that never has to occur. So if there's ever an issue with any of the cooperative property, it gets paid for out of the reserves that have already built up and accumulated. I told you I could talk about this all day, and you're testing me on that. So.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Thank you. When you look at, for instance, restaurants have 4 dollar signs, what would this project look like as far as?
Right. That's a really good question. So the challenge that I've provided to our team, and I've got folks from Cost Wilson here as well as Civil Site Group. Our goal is to get this building drawn as fast as possible so that we can get this in front of our general contractor and get numbers. Those
what's
numbers.
Your intent? I mean,
pardon?
What's your intent? Is it higher?
Yeah, our intent is that our shares are going to be about $200,000, and our monthlies will be in the $2,000 range. Nice. And that's being tested with COVID and supply problems and shipping problems and other problems. But my goal is that, or my hope is that as we kind of make it through this year and things settle down a little bit, we're able to come up with some solid numbers that we can actually begin putting in front of folks.
Last question, did you bring any brochures? No.
I will provide those to, believe me, I will drop off a lot of these here at City Council as soon as they're available. So.
Yeah. Councilmember Villavicencio.
My question was along the lines of Rebecca's. You mentioned different numbers of unit sizes. So is there any requirements or regulations around, it's obviously for seniors, but what if they want their grandkid to live with them? Is
Right.
there any requirements or regulations on that?
Great question. So the federal government under fair housing kind of defines a familial unit rather largely, and it's really how folks define it. So if a grandparent wants to have a grandchild live with them, and that's how they consider themselves their familiar unit, that's certainly allowed. One member needs to be 62 plus, and that's really the guideline that HUD has provided to us. So. And we found that in Anoka. We have folks with older children who might reside with them once they move in. I don't know about grandchildren, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Good questions, everyone. Any other questions? Your timeline.
Yes.
Assuming that you get our approval tonight.
Yes.
I can't speak for everybody else. I think this is a great project, but what kind of a timeline are you looking at?
Thank you.
If you're going to be pre-selling.
That's correct. So if anybody at home is curious about this, they can go to theamericanonphelan.com and check out our website. But once we begin marketing, which we'll plan on doing here, we found that in December, we end up spending a lot of money for very little return because folks are preoccupied doing other things. We plan to hit the ground in earnest in January with holding informational meetings on a regular basis where we invite via postcard members of the public to come out and hear our story and get a chance to ask us questions. Those are usually about an hour and a half long. We'd like to do that about twice a month. So we'll begin that process. And then once we have 60% of the building reserved, then we'll plan on moving forward towards breaking ground. So my intent would be that would happen next year, to be determined by market forces. So.
Certainly, but that's good for people to know. I'm sure there's going to be questions about it. Okay, there are no other questions. Council members, we have two motions in front of us. Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the conditional use permit for Shoreland Planned Unit Development Preliminary Plat and Final Plat Resolution for a 60-unit senior housing cooperative building to be constructed at 1875 East Shore Drive.
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Cave. I heard Cave first. The motion to approve a conditional use permit for a Shoreland Planned Unit Development Preliminary Plat and Final Plat Resolution for a 60-unit senior housing cooperative building to be constructed at 1875 East Shore Drive. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. The motion passes. We have one more motion. Who would like to make that?
Motion to approve a resolution for design review.
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Villavicencio. The motion to approve a resolution for design review. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? The motion passes. Welcome to Maplewood.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to big shout out to the staff for their assistance with getting us through. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, council members, ordinance amendment for dynamic display signs. Whose is this? Is this Mr. Thompson? He's nodding over there. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this ordinance amendment actually came to the city after discussions with the school district as part of their facilities improvements for 3 of the schools in Maplewood. They had proposed or would like to construct dynamic displays or digital signs in their new monument signs on their school campuses. And when we reviewed our ordinance, it's something that is not currently allowed by our sign ordinance. And so they submitted an application to essentially go through an ordinance amendment to amend our code to allow schools these types of signs in the community. And so we brought it first to the Planning Commission and CDRB in kind of a more workshop setting. We didn't have a draft ordinance in front of them. We just wanted to get their initial feedback about the approach of allowing schools or other institutional properties to have these. And at the end of that discussion, they thought it was generally a reasonable request and directed staff to come back with some draft ordinance provisions that address some of the concerns that came up around impacts to residential properties, but also allowing schools to have these signs. So staff has drafted that ordinance. I'll go through it at a fairly high level here in just a minute, but we did then bring that the details of the draft ordinance to the Planning Commission and CDRB. They reviewed it last month and then did recommend approval to move it forward to the council for your consideration. So there's really 3 slides here that talk about what the ordinance would do. So first is it would amend our code to allow for institutional and other public properties to have a dynamic sign on their property. It wouldn't be allowed as a staff review. It actually would be only allowed under a comprehensive sign plan process, which goes to the CDRB and also includes a notification to the surrounding property owners for their review and any sort of comment. In terms of just the design requirements, they're only allowed one sign. It would have to be one dynamic sign. It would have to be located on a monument sign. It would have to be incorporated into the existing or into a new monument sign. There would be a size restriction, a height restriction, and then it could only be up to 50% of the total area of the sign. So those are some of the design requirements that we have. And then there are also some operational requirements, and these are fairly consistent with some of what all of our commercial properties, if they have a dynamic sign, what they have to comply with. So the image has to be static. It's the no dancing bananas provision. You can't have animations or scrolling or flashing of the sign. The message itself has to be complete, so it can't have like a cliffhanger on the message, so people are paying attention to it. It has to be a complete message, and it can't change any more frequently than once every 2 minutes, except, of course, for time and temperature, which can change more frequently. There can't be any audio, and then it has to be turned off, and this is specific for schools. It has to be turned off because they're largely in residential areas, have to be turned off from 10 p.m. To 6 a.m. each day. And then additional thing we've added in there, this is a technology that exists, is that they have to be kind of auto-dimming, so that based on the ambient light conditions of dusk and dawn, and if it does get dark outside of those hours, that the sign automatically dims, so it's not becoming too bright during the evening hours or early morning hours. So these, like I said, this is not just for schools. It would apply to any property that's guided for institutional. So that could be city facilities, could be county facilities, any sort of public or institutional property. And this map that was included in your packet highlights where those properties are located. But as I mentioned, it's not of right. It would require to go through the design review process with notification of the neighbors. So as I mentioned, both the CDRB and Planning Commission recommended approval of the ordinance without any changes. They were comfortable with this approach and the provisions we had put in there. And so staff also recommends approval of the ordinance. Don't know if we have someone from the school district here. We do. We do have somebody from the school district. If there are questions, I know that they have been tuned into this because it's important to their campus improvements. So with that, Mayor, I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councilman Ruth, are there any questions for Mr. Thompson before I call the school board representative up?
No.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Thank you, Mayor. I was in on design review and planning, and they did a thorough job of reviewing all the ins and outs. And I go down the street, my wife hates them, these signs. And then I listen to the debate back and forth, and I can, and this is very reasonable. Mm-hmm. What I like about, I think, the opportunity here is there's messaging and about, what's going on in school. You got an event coming up. I think it's just really, so, and very well done, I think, in this. So I'm just supporting the work that was done to come to this position.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the sign at the Maplewood Community Center is a dynamic sign. Is it not?
It is.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was my understanding.
Is. Yes.
Yeah. We have one. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Cave.
And I just want to comment that I'm very supportive in this this change to this motion to change this ordinance. I think it's been thoroughly done, and it's definitely needed. And I think, reading through, they hit every every crossed every T and dotted every I for this week. Things can change in the dynamic sign world, but it's really a great job staff did. So
Yeah, I have to concur with you, Councilmember Cave. It checked every box that I had about any kind of concerns about the dancing, the changing signs, because that can be so distracting for drivers, and we don't need any more distractions. Would you like to join us? You can introduce yourself. Welcome to the council meeting. Want to introduce yourself?
Good evening, Mayor Abrams and council members. As a point of clarification, I'm actually the district's architect. Unfortunately, the district wasn't available tonight. We did help them through the process, providing information. So if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to field them. But
Council members, any questions? What is your name?
my name is Sean Kelly.
Thank you. Any questions for Sean?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Easy night.
It was a pretty thorough report.
Yes.
Council members, we have two motions. Would someone like to make the first one?
Go, Bill.
Motion to approve the ordinance amending City Code Chapter 44 zoning, Article 3, sign regulations related to the dynamic display signs for institutional use within the city of Maplewood.
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Cave. The motion to approve the ordinance amending City Code Chapter 44 zoning, Article 3, sign regulations relating to dynamic display signs for institutional uses within the city of Maplewood. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes. There's a second motion. Who'd like to make that one?
I will motion to approve the resolution authorizing publication of the ordinance by title and summary.
Second.
Moved by Villavicencio, seconded by Cave. The motion to approve the resolution authorizing publication of the ordinance by title and summary. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? The motion passes. The school district has their signs. There you go. As well as other, just a point, who else will this apply to? Do you want to clarify that for us?
Yeah, Mayor, principally it could be like
The county.
the city. Those are the main institutional users. The state doesn't have a lot of facilities here, so those are the main ones that parks.
Right.
The city hall campus could certainly out here could benefit. So those are the main ones.
Okay. The state does, they have something over off of 36, but I don't think it needs a sign. Isn't it?
It's the Department of Transportation.
Yes, DOT is not, they don't do interface with the public there, so, yeah.
No, and this is the first time it's come up from any of those users. The school district is the first one to bring this
Okay.
to us and identify
Thank you.
this issue.
It's important that if people have questions about that, because we've got the report and know who it applies to, but someone watching may not. So thank you for that. Okay, we have one more agenda item, the review of the 2022 charitable gambling requests. City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the City Council. Every year when we have charitable gambling funds, we have more applications and requests for projects than we have funds to distribute, and this year is no different. We have about $45,000 in requests, and the budget amount is $30,000. So,
Those are for internal
Yeah.
only, so unless you have a presentation.
okay, so it's going out. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Staff recommends that the City Council review the requests and fill out the provided score sheet. We ask that you turn those in by Friday with the final suggested awards. The award amounts will then be brought before the council on October 25th for the approval of the final awards. And I just want to remind people who are in the audience or who may be watching that in an effort to make a more significant impact for each organization, the City Council has directed staff to develop a 3-year rotating schedule whereby priority for funding would be given to requests that fit into specified categories each year. This year, first year of doing this for 2022 awards are social supports and senior citizen services. For year 2 in 2023, we'll have youth programs and community engagement and events. And for year 3, 2024, we'll have environment and natural resources and safety programs. And so the council approved this modification back in August. The funds that have been requested are outlined in your staff report. I would like to just point out that you do have, a score sheet was put on your table tonight before you to vote for the ones that you want to fund. I will remind you that there has to be 3 votes for each project. So if there's only 2 people that vote for a project, that will not receive funding. We cannot exceed the $30,000. Also, just to remind everybody that there is a reimbursement process. People have to spend the money first and then ask us to be reimbursed when their project is complete. And I would point out to our council member Valencio that she has a conflict on one of the projects. So and Bill has one too?
Yeah, I have a conflict with Ramsey County Care Center is on my board of directors for the co-op that I run.
Okay, thank you. So those 2 members will recuse themselves on that project and the Paulson and Company, Inc. So with that, I don't have anything else unless you have questions of me. The project descriptions are in your staff report, and the score sheet was placed before you on the dais this evening. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council members?
I don't know if there's people in the audience or...
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to one of these proposals? I know we've got some folks in the audience. Would anyone like to speak? You can come up to the dais and identify yourself and who you're with.
Hi, I'm Kelly George. I'm with Child Incorporated. We've been around since 1999, helping kids and primarily that have been sexually abused. Our services are completely free for anyone that requests them. We are all volunteers, none of us gets paid anything. We do have an adult support group for adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. So I have these if anyone's interested in looking further. Also, I do have some flyers on our organization, things we have done and over the years. With COVID, we haven't been able to do our benefits the last 2 years, so we're really short on funds, as I'm sure everyone is. But but the demand has gotten huge. You know, these kids, most abuse happens in the home, and they've been homebound. So we're really stretched thin. So.
I've certainly read everyone's application. Some of the people who are watching may not have read things online. What kinds of services do you provide?
Well, we go to court with the kids that are having to stand up against their abusers. We work with other organizations all across the metro. We've got bikers that come and they'll surround the child if they want, and they'll go in and do a sweep of the restroom if they have to go potty, or just to make them feel more comfortable when they have to face these monsters. And we do community education, middle school, high school, and adult, all different ages. Like we could do presentations right at the community center. Just educating. There's so many things that adults can do to identify. There's perpetrators do a lot of things that are consistent, and so there's ways to identify perpetrators and what to do if you suspect a child's being abused. So we've got a lot of educational things we do to help prevent that and educate. We do resource and referral. We do a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see. We are every child, we figure out what services they need and fit their needs. We don't just come and say, these are what we offer. So we try to help anyway. A lot of times we have to help get housing for the kids because it's usually the perpetrator isn't asked to leave the home, the victim is. So we help with that and their needs. Help get them into counseling, just anything they might need. And like I said, we've been doing this for 22 years. So,
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to is representing someone who's made a proposal for our charitable gambling requests. Would you like to join us, please, at the dais? Good evening.
Good evening. It's nice to be with you and to see some of the wider work that continues with this group. My name is Karsten Nelson. I'm actually the pastor at Our Redeemer Lutheran Church. So we are one of your applicants, and it's actually really nice to be able to read and know that there's all kinds of people invested in the care of the community and care of individuals. And it's really nice that there's some dollars that are available for such a purpose. If I told you just a little bit about Our Redeemer, so this is about the 7th year that we've done a free community meal. It used to be something small served inside. We were doing 35 people, probably 50 meals. When COVID hit, we decided that we would actually stay open, not eating inside, but starting to do to-go containers. And what we found is we started having 50 people, and then it was 75 people, then it was 100 people, then it was 125 people, and I'll tell you, last week we served 215 meals. Those are fresh meals that we make. On top of that, we deliver another 100 meals that we get from the Sine Foundation. On top of that, we also distribute every week about when I asked somebody to count, I said, just go through all the stuff and give me what's the rough ballpark of how much all this is. And on that week, that was 2 weeks ago, she said it's about $3,000. So part of that is that besides just serving a meal, we're providing somewhere close to $2,500 worth of food that's going out. Once in a while, there's some cash for some help. And, it's the variety of people. Anybody can get served. And we've seen, we have folks who walk in the neighborhood. And then we actually have some people who say, well, you can't carry that big box or 2 boxes of food. Can we give you a ride? But that economic piece, we continue to hear stories about how supportive that is and how important it is for folks. We have some folks who are homeless who are showing up on a regular basis. There are seniors who are coming in. One woman said, I actually feel kind of bad getting this. I'm 75, but I'm afraid to go to the grocery store. And she said, this is one time when it just helps. So, there's a big economic impact. I'd say the one thing, it's available to anybody for coming. The costs for this have been really absorbed by the church. We've written 2 other grants the last 2 years that we've used. Those grants are running out as well. So we're trying to keep finding a number of places where we can keep trying to be meeting a very real need right now, sustaining folks and caring for the community. So, any questions that I could?
No, thank you very much. I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Great job.
And thank you for what you're doing in our community.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay. Council members, we have our score sheets, and we will be we need to submit them by Friday. Okay? So with that, council members, we have concluded our agenda for this evening, and so we are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work tonight.